Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Speth. I am our Associate Director of Financial Aid, and I am lucky enough to get to work with you all, traditional students. So we're just going to talk through your financial aid letter you got, what the process is, how do I pay for it, things like that. We know at this point in your journey towards the end of April, as you're going into May, those are things that are really weighing on you as you are making your college decision. And so I also have our Director of Financial Aid, Robin Dietrich, who will be with me answering questions once we finish talking. Excited to get you some of this information. I know financial aid is all business, but we hope that you enjoy this piece of it and you get some information that you are looking for, and we are around for questions and things like that as well at the end. So I'm ready to go, Lisa, if you are. You have until June 1st to pay. If you have not already made your enrollment deposit, we did reduce the deposit to $100 during everything that's going on with the pandemic to try and help people out. We know finances are tight, and we'll talk about some of that too. If you've had some changes in your finances because of the pandemic, we'll talk about kind of the process for that as well. The big thing about the $100 that I want you to know in terms of financial aid is it actually is a prepayment on your account. So it's not something we keep or tuck away. It's something that goes towards your remaining balance for the year. All right, I'm ready, Lisa. And we're glad you're here virtually. I wish I could see all of your faces in front of me. I know that would be better than looking at this camera and myself in it, but we got to do the best we can with what we have. So I am glad that you guys are here today. All right. All right, so first steps. Let's say you just applied to Mary Baldwin and you're a little bit on the later end, and okay, what's next? So the first thing is going to be filing the FAFSA, which is a hard word to say. Lots of people will say FAFSA. It's a kind of a tricky acronym with everything that's there, but the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It is free. It is not something that you need to pay for. It's not something there are scam companies online that will say, oh, we'll help you file your FAFSA. Nope, it's free, and there are tools to help you with that piece. So I've applied to Mary Baldwin, and I'm so excited that I got accepted. I have this merit scholarship, and things are great. And now I want to see what other type of financial aid I'm eligible for. Well, filing the FAFSA gives us your estimated family contribution, or EFC. That's probably something you've heard, or you may have seen it on your student aid report after everything kind of came in after you filed your FAFSA. So we take that EFC and your merit scholarship and we pair them together. So we use that in combination to create a financial aid package that's just for you. If you haven't filed your FAFSA yet, or you filed it but you haven't gotten anything from us yet, let us know. There'll be some contact information at the end of this. We want to make sure that things are matching up. And the other thing is, maybe your parents have had a child in college before and they know that filing the FAFSA isn't the right thing for them. If you're not going to file it, that's totally fine too. Just let us know, and that way we will stop bugging you for it. So no big deal there. All right, I'm ready. Okay, so done everything I'm supposed to do. I've filed that FAFSA. I've gotten my awesome accept packet from Mary Baldwin. Now's where the rubber meets the road. We can see everything kind of laid out. So your financial aid letter is definitely going to include that merit scholarship that you had because you earned it. That's what you earned by working hard in high school, was that amount of money. And you get to keep that all 4 years that you're here as long as you maintain a good academic standing, which we'll get into the nitty-gritty of a little bit later. There are a couple other things it can include. So it can include grants, it can include loan funding, which we'll talk about because lots of people are scared of the word loan. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then perhaps some work study funds as well, which would be things like through student employment. All right, I'm good, Lisa. Okay, this is really tiny probably for you all on your screen right now. And if you've gotten your financial aid letter, you've seen what this looks like. This is just a front and back piece of paper. It's a lot of really tiny font because there's a lot of information that we are required to put on it. You can see on this one, Baldwin students' names right at the top, and then we've got a breakdown on there for you. So we We'll go over each of the individual pieces of it, but I wanted you all to see what it looked like. So you might go, oh, that's my financial aid letter that I got in the mail from Mary Baldwin, or oh, I got that via email. But this is going to be kind of your blueprint plan for what finances might look like for you if you were to commit to Mary Baldwin, or if you have committed to Mary Baldwin, what the next 4 years are going to look like. Good, Lisa. All right, grants. Grants are everybody's favorites. After that merit scholarship amount that's there, grants are the next piece. Grants are free. I always say grants, G for good, G for grants. Grants are great. They are free money. Everyone's favorite, free money. You do not have to pay these back at all. There are a couple of different types of grants. So for the first one is a state grant. If you're a Virginia resident or you are a military family that's stationed in Virginia right now, you're likely eligible for the Virginia Tuition Assistance Grant. It is a grant that the state of Virginia gives to Virginia residents in order to help bridge the gap between private and public education. So the number one thing that you need to remember on that, and I've got it listed right there on the slide, and we will remind you, if you commit to Mary Baldwin, you'll get some reminder emails from us, is that we have to have it by July 31st. Anything we get after July 31st is not guaranteed funding, but any application we get by July 31st that's approved, you all should get that funding. This year, with everything going on, it was $3,400 last year, and we expect it to be $3,400 this year. Things have been shifting, obviously, with everything going on, but last we heard it should be $3,400. And that's what we packaged you with on your financial aid anyways, so you should see that coming through. The next type of grant that we've got is a federal grant, and that's a lot of the reason people file the FAFSA. Sometimes we get questions like, I filed for my Pell Grant. Well, a Pell Grant is federal funding from filing your FAFSA. That's why people file the FAFSA a lot of times, is just to see, will I qualify for that funding? It is a need-based grant from the Department of Education, and it is funding you do not have to pay back. It's what the Department of Education is giving you to help you go to school based off of your family's financial circumstances. So a lot of people will file for that. There's also, you may see it on your financial aid award letter, the SEOG grant. That is the highest need grant funding that's there. So if you've got it listed on there, and we'll go over it on the award letter in a minute, but that SEOG grant funding that's there is also some funding from the Department of Education that you don't have to pay back. And then the third type that's listed is institutional grant funding. You may qualify for some Mary Baldwin institutional grant funding. For us, that's need-based funding. So maybe you don't quite qualify for a Pell Grant, but we do see that you have some need there. And so there's, maybe a little bit of Mary Baldwin grant funding that's involved at that point. Not everybody qualifies for it, just like not everybody qualifies for federal grant funding. And then the state grant funding you have to be a Virginia resident for. The key thing on VTAG is that it is not need-based. So it doesn't matter what your FAFSA says, you can have it as long as you're a Virginia resident or a military family that's stationed in Virginia. All right, I'm ready. Awesome. Okay, so this is what the grants look like on your financial aid letter. Sorry, I keep talking with my hands, but you guys can't see. I can point it to you in front of you. But if you look at the top, this is just a screenshot from a financial aid award letter. You can see that this student's institution grant that's listed there is that merit scholarship. So that's what was listed on your financial aid award letter or your accept packet when you got that. It was in the scholarship piece. That's Mary Baldwin institution funding. If you had some Mary Baldwin grant funding, that would be listed there as well. You can see the student also qualifies for a federal Pell Grant. So from filing the FAFSA, they got $2,695 towards their overall education costs from the FAFSA. That number is probably going to be the same no matter what school that you are looking at, that federal grant piece. Because if you filed the FAFSA, that should be the same across the board. And then this student right here that we've got listed that I've got for my example is a Virginia resident. So they also have some VTAG funding. You can see that we estimated it at $3,400. And the big piece that you're going to see at the bottom is the question that mom and dad have, that you have, that everybody has. What do I owe Mary Baldwin to attend if I just have grants and scholarship funding? And you can see this student got a $19,000 scholarship. They had a $2,695 Pell Grant, and then they had a $3,400 Virginia Tuition Assistance Grant. So after all of their free money, they owe about $16,000. That number is going to be different from everybody that's there, but that's if they decided not to take out loan funding. If there's no other funding that's coming in, this is what we would be looking at as a remaining balance piece for you there. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is loans, and I'm trying not to talk super fast, but I will say to you as I'm talking to you all right now, if I said something really fast or you didn't quite get anything, A, we're recording this, but B, we'll have contact information at the end and we can go back over this. Financially it can be a lot, and we know the loan piece can be a little bit daunting as we go over it. So we are here and that option is there for you. I just wanted to stop and mention that. Okay, so loan funding. It's what we hear about on the news. Well, not right now. Right now we hear about the coronavirus, but after that, you hear about loans. Loans are scary. They're overwhelming. We've got student loan debt. Those are all things that we're trying to manage. The first thing that I always say about loan funding is my goal, our office's goal, is to get you a Mary Baldwin education with as little loan funding as possible. Sometimes that's not a possibility depending on your family situation, but it is our goal for you to be able to get that great Mary Baldwin education with as little loan funding as possible. And that's what we are going to work with you on while you're here. The second thing I'll say about loan funding is that we view it as a piece of investment. If you have to use loan funding, you need to understand that you are taking out this funding as an investment in yourself for the future career or what you're looking for to do after you get that degree. One of my favorite stories to tell about loan funding before we jump into it a little bit more is that my college roommate, who I adore, dated a guy in college and is now married to him who took out loan funding for his degree. And he sat down and calculated out every year the amount of loan funding he was taking out and the number of credits he was taking divided by class. And he used that as motivation to go to every single class. He said, well, if I skip this class, I've just taken out $16 of loans for this class, so I will need to. It really got him committed to going to the class. And I always thought that was a very mature way to look at things. And I always like to mention it as something that you might think about when you're looking at that piece as well. All right, so let's jump in. Loans do have to be paid back. You borrow a sum of money, you do have to pay it back, typically with interest. So there are two types of loans that you can take out as a student. The first one is a subsidized loan. That loan is need-based. You have to qualify for that loan based off of your FAFSA. The thing about a subsidized loan is that no interest accrues while you're in school for at least half time, which is 6 or more credits. You as a student at Mary Baldwin will likely be full-time the entire time you're here, which is 12 or more credits, but it is something that we like to mention if you had to finish up a semester, is we want you to know that interest money won't accrue until after you graduate. The second type is an unsubsidized loan. Those are loans that anybody who files a FAFSA for is typically eligible, as long as the FAFSA piece is fully processed. Interest does accrue while you're in school, so that's the difference. The subsidized loan, no interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized loan, interest accrues while you're in school. Both of them don't have to be paid back until after graduation, or if you drop below those 6 credit hours, but you can pay them back early without any penalty if that's something that you choose to do. You can pay on them while you're in school. I know we have some students who get money for birthdays or work during the summer or things like that take out that loan funding during the year, and then they put some of that money towards their loans to try and keep that interest down. And it's a good idea while you're there. And if it's something that you've got questions about, hopefully once we see your faces on campus in the fall, it's something we can sit down and talk about then as well. All righty. So this is what they look like on your financial aid letter. They're pretty straightforward, like we just talked about. First year dependent students, which most of you probably are eligible for up to $5,500 in loan funding. This student that we took the screenshot from has some need, so they qualified for a full $3,500 of subsidized loan funding. The maximum amount of subsidized, which is that need-based loan that doesn't accrue interest, your first year of school is $3,500. And then the student is eligible for $2,000 of unsubsidized loan funding. With those, you can choose to take out some of that loan funding or none of that loan funding or all of that loan funding. And that part is completely up to you. It's something we can talk to you about. We do have some students who choose not to take out that unsubsidized loan, but they do take out that subsidized loan. That's definitely something that you can do as well. So it's something we'll have some conversations about moving forward, but I know it's something that's daunting, and it's relatively straightforward, but it's something we want to make sure that you understand, because I'm looking at you students, even though I'm looking at myself, I'm looking at you. If you decide to take out loans, those loans become your responsibility. They're in your name. So it's something we want to make sure that you understand. All right, I'm good, Lisa. WorkStudy. This is something we get a lot of questions about. And there's two different types that we have here at Mary Baldwin. The first one is actually WorkStudy. It's federal WorkStudy is what we call it. It's need-based funding that you can earn by working on campus. Not everybody qualifies for federal WorkStudy. Some students don't qualify for the full amount of federal WorkStudy. Some definitely qualify for federal WorkStudy. It's again based off of that FAFSA. That's why we harp the FAFSA so much, is because it tells us a lot of things about what you're eligible for. The key about federal WorkStudy is that it's something that you earn. It's not funding that's guaranteed to you if you decide not to get a job, but it's something that you earn to help. Usually with outside payments, we've found a lot of our students don't choose to use that funding towards tuition bills. We typically recommend against it because it's like a regular job where you'd work 6 or 7 hours a week. A lot of them will use it to run downtown or grab a slice of pizza, or take the trolley to Walmart and make sure they have shampoo and soup in their rooms and things like that. It's up to you what you do with that funding, but we don't typically look at something that's going to be a huge chunk to help pay off tuition. We do have a specific student employment coordinator whose name is Jennifer Ebert. She's wonderful. She works in our office. You'll get to see hopefully her smiling face sometime in the near future. But the other thing that is available to you is that we do have some institutional WorkStudy. So if you don't qualify for that federal WorkStudy funding, but you do want to work on campus, there are some positions where you can earn some Mary Baldwin funding, which for you, it'll just be money in a paycheck that you get. It's just like a regular job that you would go to. We do run it like a student employment program. So the key there is we are committed from the moment that you make that enrollment deposit to work towards you getting that Mary Baldwin education and going out into their workforce. So we run it like you would for a regular job. Typically in July, the student employment portal will open up, and then you fill out an application and we request that you submit a resume. We want you to start that process as soon as you can. So by the time you get to be a senior at Mary Baldwin and you start looking for those jobs, or you look at grad schools, you've already submitted a resume several times. You've already had the chance to have it tweaked by our Vantage Point office. You've already had that opportunity. It'll be something that you're comfortable with. There's lots of grace in this. We have lots of conversations about this because we know some of you might not have put a resume together before, and that's okay. So you submit that resume, you fill out that application sometime in July, and then usually the first or second week of classes, we want to make sure that you all have a chance to get acclimated and things like that. You'll start getting emails about being interviewed, and you might sit down to come work in the financial aid office, and you might sit down with me and we'll have a conversation. Students typically don't get dressed up for these. You don't have to buy a suit just to do a student employment interview. But we do sit down and talk about things just like an interview would normally be. And that's how we figure out what the right fit is for the right student in the right position. And then you will get hired in whatever job that is. There are jobs in the library and in the admissions office. If you've gotten to know your admissions counselor, we know some people really look forward to that piece. and in the dining hall and with different departments on campus. And so it's a good thing to look into if that's something that you want to do while you're here. All right, Lisa. All right, so how do I know if I was eligible for work study? There is a sentence in the middle of the award letter. It was hard to screenshot this for you guys, that says you're eligible for up to X amount of dollars in work study funding. Please see reverse on instructions on how to apply. So the reverse would be the back of the award letter, and I just took the little sentence that we have on there because we packed a lot of information in there that has the website on it. You can start applying. It's usually in July. Jennifer will send out an email to our students that are our incoming and our returning students as well that just says, hey, the portal's open. You can click on the link and then go through, look at jobs you might be interested in, fill out the application, and attach that resume. All right, I'm good, Lisa. Awesome. Okay, so we've talked all about the different components of the award letter, but this is the part that you all are likely the most concerned about. What do I owe? There are 3 numbers on this award letter, and you may have only seen 2, but there's one on the back. Which one is the one that I pay? That's what we're all trying to figure out. So I want to go over them with you. The first line that you see there, which is the total direct cost owed after grants and scholarships. For this student, it's about $14,000. If Baldwin student decided to just take their grants and scholarships and didn't want to take out loan funding, that's what they'd owe. Excuse me, that $14,000 that's right there. If Baldwin student takes out the loan funding that's offered to them, that $89.50 is listed there. These are not from the same award letter, so don't try and do the math in your head. These are just examples that I have for you, so I want you to have that knowledge. That piece is there. So if they decide to take out the loans and the grants and scholarships, all of that is listed right there. Those are the 2 pieces that I want you to pay attention to. On the back, the state of Virginia has required we put this number on there. I think it's confusing, but I do want to explain it to you so that you understand it. If I was to take the direct costs, so what I owe to pay Mary Baldwin for tuition and room and board and fees, and I also took the indirect costs that we estimate, which are various by students. For us, it's about $3,300 that we guesstimate as indirect costs that include travel expenses and personal expenses and books, etc. Then maybe I'll pay around that $12,000 number. The reason I think that's a little bit tricky, and I don't want you to focus on it too much, is that everybody's indirect costs are going to be different. If you're coming from Richmond, you're probably not going to spend $400 on travel. If you're coming from Florida, you're probably going to spend a little bit more coming from Florida. Some of you may buy $45 shampoo. That personal expense is going to be more than the person that buys $5 shampoo. So that number is there, but the big ones I want you to pay attention to are the ones in the gray bars. That's what we're looking at in terms of trying to get things covered. All right, I'm ready. Okay, so I've got that remaining balance piece. I know that I am going to take out my grants and scholarships and $3,000 worth of loans. And now I want to figure out what am I going to do with the rest of it. So our student accounts office will bill you for each semester. So we give you the full year amount, but you'll get a bill usually in July and then October, November for the spring. So in July for the fall and then October, November-ish for the spring. They're usually pretty even. And you can pay that in full. If you decide, okay, I'm gonna just stroke a check and pay that amount, you are welcome to do that. A lot of people do not do that, but you can definitely do that if that's something that you would like to do. The next non-loan option is a payment plan. We do have one that's set up. The website for it is just marybaldwin.afford.com. If you've already gotten that award letter and you've already committed to Mary Baldwin, I would not go in and set that up yet. Just as a side note, would wait until the bill comes out in July when you have that actual amount for the fall. But it's 4 payments per semester, and you're going to set it up each semester. So I'll set up a payment plan for the fall once I get my bill in July, and then I'll set up a payment plan for the spring once I get my bill in November. And There's a $35 fee assessed each time. It's just something that we want you to be aware of. It's usually put on that first month's payment, but you can choose to do with that what you want to. If you say, okay, I'm Baldwin student and I worked this summer and I earned $2,000 that I want to put towards my tuition, I could put that $2,000 down and put the rest of it on a payment plan. Or say grandma wants to help, and so she gives you a chunk of money and then you put the rest on a payment plan. So you don't have to commit to one or the other. You can kind of work that out the best way that you want to. You could do paying some money in a payment plan, you could do just a payment plan, or just pay by each semester. It depends on what the right fit is for your family. So those are our two kind of non-loan options. The next ones we have are the Parent Plus loan and then an alternative or a private loan. Lisa, if you want to go to the next slide for me. Okay, so the Parent Plus loan, you may have heard of this. It's a completely credit-based loan. So it doesn't matter if you have $1 million in the bank, if your credit's not very good, you'll be denied, or you have $0 in the bank and your credit's great, then you'll be approved. They don't look at assets, they're just looking at the credit that's there. And then the parent would apply at studentaid.gov. It does have to be a biological or adoptive parent, so a step parent can't apply for a Parent Plus loan, even if they're married to the parent. But if you have parents that are not married and you have a parent that is on the FAFSA, but your other parent wants to apply for the Plus loan, they can. It doesn't have to be the parent that's on the FAFSA. And I know that can be a little bit complicated. So if you've got questions, especially a personal question like that, just shoot us an email or give us a call and we can talk that through with you for sure. Only one parent can apply. So you can't have dad apply and get approved and then mom apply and get denied. We only want one parent to apply. If you are approved as a parent, say Baldwin student's parent is approved and they're not sure they want to take that loan out, you do not have to take the loan out. We have some people who apply just to see what the answer will be and then make a best decision after that. It's a soft credit check, like it would be if you went to go, look into a car loan or something like that. So that is something we want you to be aware of as well. If you are approved for the loan, you can choose, and you being the parent, can choose to take out up to that cost of attendance. So if you wanted to include the rest of the remaining balance and some book funding, you could do that. If you just wanted to do part and do a payment plan for the rest, you could do that too. If you're approved and you don't want to take out the loan, that's okay too. If you are denied as the parent, the student has the option for some additional unsubsidized loan funding in their name. So you can't choose to be approved or denied, but if you fill out that Parent Plus loan form and you're denied, your student gets their freshman year, it's $4,000 in unsubsidized loan funding. That would be a loan in their name that they can take out. I know this is kind of complicated, so it's definitely something that we can continue to talk about. But sorry, I took a deep breath there, Lisa. You can go to the next one. The last option that's there is an alternative loan. So that would be a loan from an outside entity, like a bank or a credit union or things like that. We do have a list of some lenders that you can look through, but you can choose your own lender. That would, a lot of people look into a Sallie Mae or a Freddie Mac, things like that as private loans, or they'll look at a credit union, or they'll look into, I know a lot of our military families will look into the military banks that are there because of the interest rates. If you want to take out a loan, you can definitely look into the Parent Plus loan and then that alternative loan. Both are going to require a credit check. So if you get denied for a Parent Plus loan, you're likely to be denied for a private loan. So it's just something we want you to be aware of. A couple of things about the alternative or private loans is they're not as heavily mandated as the federal loans. So we just want you to be careful when you're choosing that. Make sure you're paying attention to the terms. I know we've had some families who do a Parent Plus loan one year and then a private loan the next year. I know I talked to a dad last week who did a Parent Plus loan last year, got a better interest rate on a private loan this year and went that route. And that's definitely something that is open for you to do as well. It's whatever piece that you are comfortable with. All right, I'm ready, Lisa. All right, we've talked a lot. We're getting towards the end of my presentation piece. I know some of you have questions. How do I do all of this? How do I accept my financial aid? How do I find all the things that I'm looking for? We've got a financial aid portal for you all to do that electronically. The web address is there. I'll email that out to you. If you committed to Mary Baldwin or you're planning to commit in the next little bit, probably the next 2 weeks or so, I'll send you an email out with some login information to that portal for you all to start looking around in it. In there, you can accept your funding that's there, you can reduce that loan funding, or you can decline it. That's all listed there. And then there's also an option with some links to documents that we need. So the two things you'll look at when you get in there, and this will be in the email I sent out with your login, but is the accept award screen and the documents and messages. So if there are things we need you to complete or things we want to tell you, that'll be in documents and messages. For you to accept your funding, reduce it, or decline it, that'll be in accept awards. But it's a electronic option that we have there for you to try and make things a little bit easier. Sorry. All right, Lisa. Okay, this is just what the front page looks like. You've got a login screen to the side. This goes over, typically we'll put things that we want you to know on that front page, so it's a good thing to check through. There's some login instructions there, and there's actually a YouTube link, I'm not sure if it's on the screenshot, that'll help you walk through the steps of getting into the financial aid portal. The login information is a little bit different than some of your My MBU logins and things like that, so we want to make sure that you have that piece there. All right, I'm good, Lisa. All right, so questions. Robin and I are both here, and we're just going to kind of go through some of the questions that are there. I know we've got some that are published, and we'll scroll through them. All right, so the first question that was asked was, can you break down the FAFSA and the scholarship through the school? Yes, it's kind of what we did when we went over things. If whoever asked that question, if you still aren't sure at the end of this, just shoot that email address that's up on the screen, finaid@marybaldwin.edu, if you've got some more questions, and we can set up a time to talk or answer your questions that way. All right, the second question, is it likely that there's going to be a tuition change in the next few months? No, it would be very surprising to me. They already set tuition for next year, and it did not increase. It has not increased in a couple of years. We do spend a lot of time, our board does, our executive staff does, looking at what's going on in the world, and have not increased tuition in a while. So we do not expect an increase in tuition coming forward. All right, how does federal WorkStudy work? So we talked a little bit about that. You earn the funding that's there, different jobs on campus, and things like that. Does my merit change from year to year? That's a really good question. No, it does not. So that merit scholarship that you earn through the admissions office with your SAT or ACT scores is yours all 4 years, as long as you maintain a good academic standing. And so there is something that we'll send out with some documentation, but it's in general, it's about a 2.0. If you were to drop below that, we would give you a warning. And then if you still weren't meeting those criteria, we have an appeal process for that scholarship funding. You will find in our office, and probably Mary Baldwin across the board, that the benefit of being a small school is that we do a lot of conversational things back and forth with you all. And so if you started, the one thing I will say, if you started with a lower scholarship and then, you know, worked really hard while you were here, you can appeal your merit scholarship after a full year if that's something you want to do. It's not something we do a ton of, but it's definitely something that we can look into as we kind of go into the future piece. All right. Sorry, I'm just working on my scrolling. What loans do you recommend outside of MBU? So there are no loans that we recommend that we are not legally, we cannot recommend outside loans to you. We've got that link that's in the presentation. You can also find it on our website under alternative loans that you can go through and just look at some loans. But you can definitely look into, I know credit unions, I'm just telling you anecdotally, credit unions, we've had families be successful through there. I keep wanting to say USDA, but it's not the Department of Agriculture, it's USAA, I think, which is through the military. We've had some families be successful there as well. All right, how do I apply to become a work-study student? We talked about that. Are there more grants I can find outside of MBU? So most of the stuff you're going to find outside of the federal grant funding, and Robin, jump in if I'm missing something for me, are scholarships. They're typically not grants, because a lot of them are based off of your academics or if you meet other criteria. I know some websites that we recommend, excuse me, there's two that we typically recommend, fastweb.com and scholarships.com. And the keys to both of those are really filling out their profiles, which sounds funny and kind of time consuming. There are a ton of questions that are involved, like, do you live in this state? Have you ever had this? But the big thing on that we want to kind of hone in on there is there might be a scholarship for a saxophone player from Augusta County whose dad's a farmer. Well, if you don't answer the questions, they won't know to send you that specific scholarship. So that's the first tip piece. I'm glad somebody asked about grants or scholarships outside of this. The second thing is, and this is harder right now, we know, is a lot of our students are more successful locally. So Kiwanis clubs and churches and the YMCA and things like that. Community funds and organizations. I know where I grew up, there's a huge one, which some of you might be in that area. On the peninsula, there's it's Peninsula Community Fund. They do a ton of scholarship funding. So there's things like that. I'm hoping maybe some of you can email your guidance counselors if you haven't been able to talk to them in person. That's a really good place there. All right, how do I apply for institutional grant funding? There's no separate application. We use your FAFSA along with your merit scholarship to determine institutional grant funding. If you feel like things have changed since you filed your FAFSA, shoot us an email. There's a process that we can kind of walk through there. What kind of work study jobs are available? I think we talked about that. All kinds of them. You can work in the dining hall, the library, you can work in an administrative setting. I know that we have had some more senior work study students work in like our communications office or our Vantage Point, which is kind of like our career office. So all kinds of work study jobs. Is it possible to get a full ride? I feel like that's a question that's asked a lot of places. Yes and no. We do not have a full ride scholarship. No, we do have some students who have earned the highest merit scholarship, and that in combination with some of their federal funding will cover most of their costs. Can I retake my SATs to get a high merit scholarship? Yes, that's an admissions question because they'll review that. But yes, anytime you have new scores or final grades from once you finish things, they'll reconsider your GPA. I don't know at this point that they're still offering the SAT. It looks like Anthony is replying to your question, so check back on that. What are the deadlines for paying for first semester / the year? Oh, there we go. Deadlines, they'll send out the bill in July. We want you to have a plan before you show up. And the kind of the deadline piece for the following semester is that you've got to have a plan or have the first semester paid off in order to register for the second semester. So there's no like, you have to have it paid by September 1st, because we'll have families with payment plans or loan funding that hasn't come through yet by the time that you move in on campus. But usually October holds will start going on accounts so that you can't register for the next semester that's there. Right. The cost of the tuition, including accommodation and food, published on the page is for 1 year. Yes, so on that back of your award letter, and you can see it on the website as well, the tuition cost is listed. I think it's right around $30,690. That might be tuition and fees, and then room and board. So one thing that's included in your cost is, if you live on campus within room and board, is your meal plan. There's no separate meal plan cost that you have to pay, and there's no laundry cost. So parents, some of you will remember collecting quarters. You do not have to do that here. That is included in your room and board cost. All right, one of my parents was laid off, but I already filled the FAFSA. What should I do? So if you've had, and we know that this is happening, a family circumstance change because of the virus, or honestly before the virus, if a parent got laid off or something happened, email that FinAid@marybaldwin.edu account. We have a form called a change of income form that allows us to collect some information from you, and then you cannot change your FAFSA at this point, but we as financial aid professionals can use professional judgment and go in and change things if, after reviewing all of the information, it's something that's deemed necessary. So do not go back into your FAFSA and change any information. And you even if you haven't filed it yet, you have to use that 2018 information to file it. But if circumstances have changed, reach out to us, we'll get you the form, and then we'll work with you in the coming weeks and months to make sure that the FAFSA is accurate on your current situation. Can a non-citizen student apply for a loan? Most of the time, no. So federal loans, if you're not a citizen, you cannot apply for loan funding. You don't qualify for a federal loan. I don't know of any off the top of my head that are current alternative loan providers that provide loans for non-citizens. If you want to email that FinAid account, I check all the time, or you want to call and talk about that with me, that's something that we can do too. But typically, no, non-citizens can't apply for loans. Do most students have WorkStudy? We do have a really good number of students on campus that qualify for WorkStudy. Robin, do you have any idea how many there are?
I think there are around 300 or 350 on campus who are doing WorkStudy.
Which for our on-campus residential population is like a little bit more than half. So yes, a lot of them do. And there are definitely students that qualify for WorkStudy every year that don't apply for a job. They don't want to work, and so they don't. Can we do a payment plan? Yes. Can I take out a Parent Plus loan if my parents don't sign? No, you cannot take out a Parent Plus loan if your parents don't sign. The parent has to apply for that loan. We do have some parents that are willing to apply for the Plus loan, and if they get approved, they will not take out the loan, but if they get denied, then the student has the option of that extra unsubsidized loan funding in their name. So that may be an option that we can talk about as well. Unfortunately, you usually can't get an alternative loan without having an adult cosigner either. When paying back direct cost after grants or direct cost after loans, is that per year or overall? That's per year. So that's per academic year that you're here. Just like you got that. So say your merit scholarship's $18,000. You get $18,000 every year towards your total cost of tuition, room, and board. And I will say our tuition, room, and board has not gone up hardly at all in the last couple of years, just because we're pretty conscious of what's going on. How do you make an appointment to discuss individual needs? Email that FinAid@marybaldwin.edu account, or I didn't put my email address on here, but you can email me directly and we can set up an appointment for sure. What if a student sent in the deposit, received an email that MBU got it, but nothing about financial? So you can deposit without filing the FAFSA. If you haven't gotten your financial aid letter in the mail, or you haven't, you filed your FAFSA and you haven't heard anything from us, there could be a couple of reasons. One, there could be a mismatch on the Social Security number. That's usually the most common reason, that you either didn't put a Social Security number on your application, or there were some numbers transposed, and so we weren't able to match it up with your FAFSA because it requires that Social Security number match. That's typically what happens. If you feel like you've filled out your FAFSA and haven't gotten anything from us, shoot me an email. If it was within the last week or so, it's taking them a little bit longer to get FAFSAs processed right now through the Department of Ed. So we can check back on that too. Can you do federal work study as a freshman? Yeah, absolutely. You can do federal work study as a freshman. How can one apply for other scholarships at MBU? Sorry, Anthony, you're answering them and they're moving up and down. I'm having a hard time keeping them on the screen. So we try and go out with the best financial aid package available to you from the very beginning. There is no separate application process for other scholarships as a first-time student. Once you get into your major, there are a couple of scholarships that are major specific that your department will go out with that you apply for. And then you can definitely look at your merit scholarship and talk with your admissions counselor to see if there's any way for you. So say you have a 3.45 and you need a 3.5 in order to get the next scholarship. We'll wait for that final transcript to come in and they will review it. What additional grants can I apply for? There are no really additional grants that you can apply for within Mary Baldwin, and we talked about the outside scholarship piece. How should financial aid be accepted? It looks like Anthony answered that one there, but yes, you can accept your funding in the financial aid portal. There is a signature line on the award letter. You're welcome to sign that and send us a picture of that if you want to do that, but we do try and direct you towards the portal. And if you haven't signed and accepted it yet, and you've already sent in your deposit, you haven't lost anything. I know a lot of times people are worried and they want to sign it and they want to get something over because they're worried they're going to lose something. You're not going to lose anything. If you go into the portal June 15th, you'll still be fine. So don't stress out over that. Yes. All right. Looks like Anthony, you answered that one. Now that the deposit was lowered to $100, what does that mean for someone like me who paid the deposit when it was $300? Exactly what Anthony just said. It means that extra money is just going towards your fall balance. The deposit is never something that we keep. It always goes towards that balance. So it's just, you'll have a little bit more towards there. Can a non-citizen student apply to a work-study job at Mary Baldwin? Yes. What I will have you do is talk with Jennifer Ebert, our student employment coordinator. There's a lot of extra paperwork that's involved, and she'll have to evaluate and make sure that we're meeting the federal requirements for that piece. But I believe we have had maybe one non-citizen or an international student that's worked on campus. And is it true that freshmen are allowed cars on campus? If so, how will that process work? Anthony, it looks like you're replying good because I don't know the answer to that. All right, let me see. Can PEGs do work study? Yes, if you are below 16, I believe you have to get a work permit. And so you'll work directly with Jennifer on that to make sure that we're meeting those requirements, because the same state and federal employment requirements have to be met even for a work study job. And is the deposit final? No refunds. Yes, it is a non-refundable deposit. If you are struggling financially in your family right now and you've got questions or concerns, definitely reach out to the admissions office, either Kirsten, our associate director for admissions, or Matt Muncie, who is our vice president for admissions, is probably who you want to get in contact with. But if you've got your admissions counselor's information, you can start with them as well. Let me see what else. When is the deadline for the deposit? June 1st. All right, am I missing any questions? Did anybody ask anything that I missed? All right, does anybody else have any other questions or anything for us today? Or if you think of one once you get off of things, you can definitely call the phone number that's there. Monday through Friday, there's somebody in the office from 8:30 to 4:30. And then you can always email the finaid at marybaldwin.edu. I know things are weird right now. We usually have in-person meetings. So if there's something you want to talk about specifically in your circumstance, we can set up a Google Hangout or a phone call and talk through things with you. We're really fortunate to be small and get to work on you on a one-on-one level. So I'm really excited to get to know some of you all that are coming in, because that's one of my favorite parts of my job, is getting to have that relationship with students all 4 years that they're here. Let me see, is there anything else? Looks like we've gotten through all of the questions. Thank you guys for listening to me for a solid 50 minutes. That was a lot of talking that I know that I just did. And I know some of it was probably pretty fast. So financially, it's complicated sometimes. I know it can be incredibly overwhelming, but fortunately for me, my job is to help you walk through some of that. So as you have questions or concerns or anything that's going on, please reach out to us. The best thing that we get to do is work with you all on a one-on-one level. The paperwork stuff is not as fun. Talking to you guys is the much better part of this gig. So reach out to us. We'll set anything up that we can to make sure you guys are getting the answers that you need. But I think that's all. We good?
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Stay well.